Hello everybody, it's your pal Joey.T. from the Cartoon.P giving you another vlog. This time I just got out of seeing Dumbo, and before I give my thoughts on the movie, unedited raw thoughts, I do want to encourage you to check out my Patreon page where you can qualify for perks. If you donate to the page, there are other perks included such as credits in the videos. Something you just to consider, help me out financially to produce the show. My obligatory speech on checking out my Patreon. So let's actually get into talking about Dumbo. So a lot of people have been looking forward to me talking about this movie, mostly because I've been talking about it in other videos. I did a speculation video on Dumbo way back. I don't even know which year it was, but a really long time ago, talking about my thoughts. I was very optimistic about this movie. I made other videos talking about the trailers and promotion to this movie. Everything I felt about this movie being good. A lot of high expectations for this movie. Tim Burton directing, a screenplay by Aaron Kruger, who is best known for Revenge of the Fallen Transformers movie. Not that sits with many people. And I will say, I just got out of seeing Dumbo, so this is fresh thoughts of the movie. And I will tell you once I get that notification out of the way. Sorry about that, folks. Is that if you want my general impressions, I'll say this. Okay. Yep. It happened. And it's like, I was actually in the movie. There were moments that made me cringe. There were moments that made me excited. And then there were moments that just, as the overall experience goes, yeah, don't know if I'll watch this again. But I'll say if you enjoy it, I could see why. There's actually a couple things you can enjoy. I was actually coming into this because I noticed that there were a couple things in the promotions, like the later promotions, that I wasn't too crazy about. Like, they had an announcer who was also in the movie too. Instead of saying, "Let's get ready to rumble," he goes, "Let's get ready to Dumbo." And I was just like, no, that was cringe right there. But let's actually talk about the story of Dumbo, because this is definitely not the Dumbo we've all come to expect from Disney. So in this version of Dumbo, as I talked about in previous videos, that this is going to take place in a world where the animals do not talk. That was confirmed right off the bat. No animals talk in this movie, which makes it a different movie entirely. So in this version of Dumbo, Dumbo is born into this world, and he is raised by a very small niche circus led by Danny DeVito, once again playing a ringleader in a Tim Burton movie. I'm pretty sure he gets typecasted. There's a couple of great memes talking about that too. So there's also Colin Farrell. There's his family. Colin Farrell comes out of war, losing an arm, reaches back to his kids who have, well, Disney syndrome. They've lost their mama. They even say it like that. They lost their mama, except the girl who strives to be a scientist in the family has way no emotion. I'm already criticizing the movie as I'm talking about it, but I'll get into that later. But I'll tell you this. Dumbo is being raised by this family, and he loses his mom because of an incident. Everybody sees his ears, and then they go from calling him Jumbo Jr. to Dumbo, like in the movie. And then at some point they discover, wow, he can fly. Another circus ran by, let's be real, a Disney-type tycoon buys out the circus from Danny DeVito and opens him up for their own main attraction, which is interesting. And I'm going to get into that into my actual review-ish portion of this vlog video. So let's actually talk about some of the positives, because that's all you need to know as far as the story goes. So as far as the positives go, I will say there are a couple moments in the movie that, as fans of Dumbo know, had to be in the film. Like, for example, the pink elephants on parade. Tim Burton is a talented filmmaker. I'm just going to tell you that straight off the bat. He is a very, very talented filmmaker. And I'll just say, it was very exciting to see his version of the pink elephant on parade, and it is everything. It's short, but, you know, given the movie that we're watching, is to be expected. So, seeing that sequence in the movie and how it plays out in the movie was done pretty good. I'll also say the actors are really good. Their characters themselves, not really, but with the material that they're given, sorry about that, with the material they're given, they did a really good job. I like Colin Farrell as an actor. Danny DeVito is great in anything he does, and it's always a joy to see Michael Keaton once again in a Tim Burton movie. I'm not talking about all the actors. I think those are the main ones. And Eva Green, which at this point, she's pretty much taken on the Helena Bonham Carter of Tim Burton movies. She did good too. I'll also say, and I honestly, other than Tim Burton, the typical Danny Elfman score, Rich Heinrich's production design, everything you'd associate to a Tim Burton movie, as far as the filmmaking goes, is good. You know, that's just generally Tim Burton in general. You really can't complain about that. I'll say, like, on the grand scheme of things, if we're talking about Tim Burton directing this movie, this is probably right smack dab in the center. Not nearly as great as his other films like Edward Scissorhands, which, by the way, Alan Arkin being in this film had me laughing personally because the character he plays a banker, but let's be real, the guy was pretty much playing the dad in Edward Scissorhands, and that's such a fun niche character that no one ever likes to talk about, but it was kind of fun seeing Alan Arkin play Alan Arkin in similar to that role. Like, he's a banker, but is he a banker with cookies in his bank? Because you can't buy things with cookies. Okay, so I had to get that out of the way. But yeah, as far as, like, the production design of this film is amazing, except for the CG. I'm gonna be real with you, like, the CG was 50-50. It wasn't, at times it was believable, but at times when it wanted to be realistic, it fell apart. Like, there was a moment in the film, clear as day moment, with Casey Jr., the train. And I gotta appreciate at times that they're using a real train, but other times when they're putting in CG for the train, like, you see the tires. I swear to God, those tires didn't look like they were finished rendering, and yet they were still in the final product. Why? I don't know. But I'll say there were just a lot of things in this film where you just don't care. And that's a problem with the movie, is that when you're not emotionally invested in a Dumbo movie, that is saying a lot. Because Dumbo, I'm not making a comparison to Dumbo, I'm only saying this as a fact. Dumbo is the great American animated movie. I say that because everything done right in that movie, and there are flaws. There are flaws in Dumbo, but everything done right in Dumbo inspires every animated movie, every family film you can watch. The idea of believing in yourself, you could say, goes off to Dumbo. The idea of the misfits goes back to Dumbo. Like, everything you associate, all the qualities, people like to say it was Snow White that started it, everybody would like to say it was Pinocchio, but they didn't perfect it. Dumbo perfected it in only 60 minutes, and only an hour. I know a lot of people have recently talked about that, but I mentioned way back in the day when I did a symposium on Dumbo, like, everything Disney does right goes down to Dumbo. And to me, one of the big aspects to Dumbo that makes you invested is the heart. And I could not, either it was the dialogue and the writing. Like, here's this, for example. So, you want to be emotionally invested in the relation between Dumbo and his mother. In fact, that's the thing that brings everything together, is that it's Dumbo trying to reunite with his mother. That is what is the heart of the movie. At the end of the day, it's a child trying to reunite with his mother. And at times it was okay, but like in the original film, you really cared about it because you saw time where Tim Burton Dumbo, what? Dumbo with his mother, that's the real crux to the film. It's like, without that, you're just not going to have that good of a film. And it's like, alright, so you see Dumbo and Mrs. Jumbo relate to each other. You see scenes with them together. You see time with them together. Like in the first movie, there was him getting a bath with his mom. And it's a great character building moment. For a movie that short, you at least get time to see character between mother and son, so that when you see the two separated and then reunited, like behind the bars and the baby mine scene, you do tear up. And that's a big emotional climax in the movie. You know, Dumbo doesn't fly. The flying is not the big deal in the film, which I'm going to get into like in the talking about the remake, but it's not the flying that makes it important. It's the heart of the movie. And for Dumbo, when you don't have time relating to the characters or getting invested in the characters, then it all falls apart. I said the actors are good, but as characters, we have seen them done so many times that at some point, there are characters that just don't get any screen time. And a movie that's twice as long as the original, you just don't care about or really know about, really says a lot. That's a problem. And there's supposed to be like this big moment in the film where like the circus troupe, something happens to this circus troupe. I'm not going to get into what happens to them. I'll probably talk about that in another video, more edited video. But I'll say that something happens to the circus troupe and you're supposed to care about them. Like you're supposed to feel really bad for them when they lose this thing. And you really don't, because how much time was really dedicated to these characters? How much, like, were they given any interesting dialogue? Did we find out anything interesting about their characters other than that they, like, I'll say one thing, like, there was one character, a black character, by the way, which says a lot, because I think Disney was really trying to fix some stuff, regarding their first Dumbo, who is also an accountant. He's a versatile character, and he's given dialogue that isn't, oh yeah, I hope I so see the elephant fly, yeah, or you know, like slaving away, you know, oh these roustabouts, oh slaving the night, making the circus tent. He doesn't have dialogue like that, thank God, but he's probably the only one that was given actual dialogue. But even then, he didn't really get that much dialogue. And you really don't really care about what happens to him in comparison to the other circus characters. And I would say, like, most of the focus was on Danny DeVito, which you can owe to the fact that it's Danny DeVito, you know. I think he's been in the business for long enough to know what he can do. Same thing with Michael Keaton, who I think, as far as an actor go, you can tell the performance is good, but it's kind of like Samuel Jackson in the Star Wars prequels. He's a cool, you know, he's a good actor, but the character really isn't given that much to do. And it says a lot, because in the movie, Michael Keaton plays a tycoon that creates a theme park and buys out creative talent to make his theme park bigger, which blows my mind a little, because in this day and age where Disney is buying out all these properties like Marvel and Fox, like Fox's film division and Star Wars, to say something like that in their own movie, to me, I don't know how they would have gotten away with that or really felt confident enough. But at the same time, you kind of hate them for saying that, because it's almost like, yeah, we know we're evil and we're gonna make a movie talking about how we're evil, but we're still gonna be evil and we're still gonna buy out all these different corporations, you know. It was very mixed. And for a character like Michael Keaton to not really be interesting when essentially he's playing like an evil version of Disney, or as most people like to say, Disney? No, I'm just kidding. But ultimately, it was just mixed, you know. It was a mixed bag for me, especially in a movie like Dumbo. But as far as like the actors, I say the worst actor, and I feel like the movie was really trying to build up on this kid relating to Dumbo, is the little girl, the daughter of Colin Farrell's character. She's, I don't know. If she's going to be getting more work, I hope she'll do better. But in this movie, if I'm judging it by this performance, she was like, she had no emotion. Like, you could have Stephen Hawking's speak box have more emotion than her performance. And that it made me feel bad, because kid actors are really hard to find, but there are good kid actors. It's just, as far as like this kid actress going, ooh, It was pretty cringy. Her dialogue was pretty cringy because it was like contrived dialogue, and she'll probably get older and she'll probably do better performances. But as far as her performance goes in this movie, I just did not care. I felt really bad. I was like, oh, let's just hope you can move past this, and maybe like the next movie you're in is gonna be like that little kid from Room, just blow people away. But it ain't this movie, that's for sure. And I apologize to whoever that kid actress is, because being a kid actor and actress in this day and age is really hard, and I give you props just as far as this movie goes. But at the end of the day, I mentioned it before, but like if we're talking about like the biggest problem this movie has is the heart. There really is no emotional core because you don't really relate to the characters that are on the screen. And even Dumbo, which is a given, isn't on screen long enough, or even the disattachment that goes on with him in the first movie happening into this film is not really there. You know, I'm on the fence about making a review for Dumbo as opposed to making a review on the original Dumbo, because the original Dumbo really stands the test of time in certain areas. You know, the movie really dated itself with the racist stereotypes, and that's a conversation for another day. But like, as far as we're talking about animated movies, Dumbo is a classic that reinvented the American animated movie. Because as far as like what works in animated movies today, Dumbo pretty much set the standard as far as the business. It pretty much changed the way we make movies that are animated in this country, you know, as far as family films going in this country. And this film is just derivative of it. And the best way I could describe this movie is if you were to take Dumbo as like a concentrated drink, pour it in some water, mix it up, and then it's not the same. It's not as concentrated. It's just watered out. And that's really the best way I could describe this movie. Sorry, but I'm one of those people that came in really defending it. And I'll say, like, I'm happy I saw this because it's a Tim Burton movie. And at the end of the day, Tim Burton, with whatever material he's given, like the actors in this film, Danny DeVito, Michael Keaton, Colin Farrell, are given material that isn't really that great. But they made the best out of it. And for that, I really can't say this is one of the worst Tim Burton movies out there. I will say that as far as Tim Burton movies go, this is, just, like I said before, just right in the middle. Just nowhere, right there in the center. It ain't Ed Wood, it ain't Edward Scissorhands, but it is definitely not the remake of Alice in Wonderland, and it is definitely not Dark Shadows. It's above those films, below those films. Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood and Sleepy Hollow, when I say those films. And really, that's all I gotta say about Dumbo. That was interesting. I'm sure you guys were looking forward to this video, so like it, subscribe to the channel, do all that fun stuff, and it's always a pleasure making these videos. So I hope everybody has a great day, and take care.